Okay, I need you to tell me if I'm underreacting or overreacting so that I can get a grip. Surely this is nothing. Let's try this again. I was leaving the pool with my kids and we were in a parking lot. There were not a lot of cars left. The parking lot we were in was like across the street from the pool, and it was like a municipal parking lot. And so there were a lot of cars that had like city stickers. And as we were walking, I suddenly heard like a thud, like a distinct thud, as if there was like something or someone that like pushed against the back of a vehicle, is exactly what it sounded like. And so I stopped and I looked, and the vehicle that the sound came from was one of the only vehicles in the lot that did not have the city sticker. It was a white van, again, without the city sticker, in between two like trucks and vans that did have the city sticker. And as I looked closer, all of the windows were blacked out, like cheaply blacked out with some type of black film. And I like looked closer and I waited for a minute to see if I would hear the sound again. And I didn't. And I kind of like went like, hello? And looked around to see if someone was in the car, like in the front, and there's no one in the front. And I thought about like moving closer and then decided not to because I had my kids with me. They were like right there. And I started running through all the things in my head that it could have been. And I was like, I'm sure something fell. Something fell, right? So I got in the car with my kids, but just in case, I'm never going to be that person that didn't call when they had a feeling, ever. We're on our way to, we're here now. We were on our way to soccer. I called the police. I told them where it was, what I'd heard. I had memorized the first 3 of the license plate. It was super close to the police station, so I assumed they could get there quick. They took my information. I just heard from the police like 2 minutes ago. They got there, they found it, they were looking for more information so they could find it. But I don't know what happened. I don't know anything yet. I'm overreacting, right? Like, I don't know why I'm so emotional about this. I'm overreacting, right? Like, should I have done more? Anyway, police are there now. And I'm sure it's nothing. I asked them to call me back. They're gonna call me back. I'm sure it's not the worst case scenario, so.
The scariest nursing home I ever worked at, story time. So in my early 20s, I got a job as a cleaner in this really old nursing home / rehabilitation center that we'll call Premier Living. Now this place was 3 stories high, and it was winged off in 8 different sections. It'd have your older folks over here, very sick people over here, rehabilitation over there, addiction over here, and then downstairs there were 2 floors. You had the morgue and then the basement below the morgue. And when I tell you that was the creepiest damn place I ever been, it was terrifying. So up on the 3rd floor, we had this room that was called the sunroom, and it was where all the windows were open, kind of like a play area for the elderly people, and they'd go in there throughout the day, play cards, Yahtzee, bingo, just different board games. They'd watch TV. Sometimes they'd smoke and talk. But the real reason it was called the sunroom was because every evening when the sun went down and it started to get dark, all the patients with sundown syndrome would start acting up in that room. I mean, they would go from talking just like I am right now to sitting there like this. And you would gradually see their face change, and they would turn into a whole different person. If you didn't know what sundown syndrome was and it was your first time dealing with it, you would think they were possessed. There was one elderly woman who would be talking just like this, playing cards or whatever, and then all of a sudden, when the sun went down, she'd go, she would breathe so loud when she did it, she sounded like a dog panting. It freaked me out. Another resident had this baby doll, and she carried it everywhere, and she treated it like it was her own baby. She took great care of it. But when that sun went down, she'd turn on that baby. She'd switch up so fast. One minute she'd be, I love the baby so much, to banging its head on the table. One of the coolest things about working in a nursing home is that you're dealing with all these older people who have lived a lifetime. They all have a past, and every past is different. So they would tell you the coolest stories. They'd tell you stories that were real about their life, and then they would tell you like their legends and folklore from where they were from. For example, Miss Ming, she would tell us these stories about folklore and legends in Japan. One of those stories was that in Japan, there is a ghostly woman, or this beastly type woman, who stands so many feet tall, has long black hair, sharp nails, and she's so tall that she can see up into like second, third story windows. Miss Ming was always telling us about this thing, and as Miss Ming's brain continued to deteriorate, at night she began screaming, saying that this thing was standing at the window watching her. A lot of nights they would have to sedate Miss Ming because she swore this thing was standing or floating at her window. But what freaked me out was one night the nurses called me into her room to help them change her bedpan and her sheets and stuff, and Miss Ming was kind of heavy set, so they would roll her over and I would change the sheet. But as I was putting the sheet on the bed, I stretched my arm across, and when my peripheral vision, like when I glanced up at the window, I could have sworn I saw this pale white face, dark eyes, long hair, just like gleaming into the window. I jumped back and dropped everything, and the nurses are like, "What the hell's wrong with you? Like, put the sheet on the bed." And Miss Ming is like, "You saw her, didn't you? You saw her, didn't you?" And I'm like, "I don't know what I saw." We also had this woman that we'll call Cheryl, who said her husband Albert was a hitman and that he had killed thousands of people throughout their marriage. I'll have to make a video about Cheryl all on its own because that story is so long but interesting. So long story short, while he's gone, she's going through some of their stuff, and she finds a bin out in the garage, and it's full of these notebooks, his journals. Allegedly, she found her husband's kill books where he spoke in detail about the victims, who they were, where they were from, why he killed them. I often wondered if he was a hitman or if he was just a serial killer. Don't know for sure. Now, one of the nurses did report this to the police, but the police said there was no way it could be true. She had to be out of her mind, but I often wondered, was she telling the truth and they just didn't want to investigate it? I don't know. Then there was Mr. Joe. Now, Mr. Joe was an old retiree. He'd been at the home for about 5 years when I started there, and he was probably like 90, 91, somewhere in there. Now, Mr. Joe was really cool, really sweet, always respectful, but sometimes late at night, he would get very scared, and he would swear that there was something standing in the room with him. He would say this thing is standing at the foot of the bed, on his pillow, laying next to him, on the ceiling, just, it's always with him, following him, and it won't leave him alone until he's dead. But later, his daughter told us that it was his own son that he had shot and killed. Apparently, the son had snuck out of the house. Mr. Joe woke up, thought it was an intruder breaking into the house, but it was a son who had came home late. And Mr. Joe grabbed his pew-pew and unalived him. And then when they cut the lights on and realized it was his son, he just went off the deep end. But the creepiest thing that happened that actually made me quit my job was what Mr. Rick did. So Mr. Rick was about 74 years old. His family admitted him into the nursing home, claiming that he was out of control and they couldn't handle him anymore and he was getting into trouble and he needed to be monitored and supervised, so they put him in the nursing home. Mr. Rick was 74 years old. He was still mobile. He could get up, walk around. Hell, he'd jog around the nursing home sometimes. He was in great shape. But his family admitted him into the nursing home, stating that he was out of control and they couldn't handle him anymore. So I go into work around 7 o'clock that evening. I was 30 minutes late, and it had been storming throughout the day. But that night we had some bad storms come through, and I mean, boom, just thunder shaking the ground, lightning, tornado warnings. It was rough. So around 10 p.m., lights are out, TVs are off, we're making our rounds. And I'm walking around, I'm thinking, something just kind of feels off, but I don't know what it is. Next thing I know, nurses are running down the hallway, the power goes out, and I'm like, what is going on, y'all? And she said, Mr. Rick is missing. Come on, we got to find Mr. Rick. Hurry up. So, of course, I throw my mop down to the side, we take off, we split up, and I'm paired up with another nurse. And we all start going around searching for Mr. Rick. Now, we knew the place was on lockdown, and there was no way for him to get in or out of this place, so we knew he was there somewhere, we just had to find him. So me and this nurse, we go downstairs towards the morgue in the basement, and we get down to the morgue, and the doctor comes in and says, hey, have y'all seen anybody in here? And we said, no, but we're looking for Mr. Rick. Why? He said, because one of our cadavers is missing. I said, what? Where would it go? What do you mean a cadaver is missing? One of the bodies was missing out of the morgue. The doctor said, I don't know, but it didn't just walk off. Somebody took it. Sorry, I had to take a break. But anyways, me and this nurse are standing in the hallway, side by side, and when we get towards the beginning of the next hallway, we see this figure standing down at the end of that hallway we were just at. She looks closer and says, that guy looks weird. Look at his face. His head's dropped down. I said, yeah, he does look weird. Something's wrong with him. It kind of looked like Mr. Rick was standing there holding his head down like this. But when she got closer, she said, that's not Mr. Rick. And when I got closer, I said, that man's naked. That dude is stark naked, and his skin don't look right. Well, why does he look purple like that? What? And then she realized, wait a minute, that ain't Mr. Rick. That's the cadaver. I said, well, if that's the cadaver, how's he standing there? She said, I don't know. But then the cadaver, the body, picked his head up, and his eyes was open, and he was looking at us. Well, then his head drops again, and this dead body starts walking towards us, and it picks up pace to where it looks like it's running, like running at us. So I said, oh, hell no, this, I'm out. When I tell you, I didn't give a shit. I took off running. Yes, I left her there. She was screaming, where are you going? I said, fuck this and fuck you and fuck y'all. I'm done. I'm out. So the next day, everybody was laughing at me because we all found out it was Mr. Rick. He stole the body from the morgue and was standing behind it, holding it up, making it move. That's why it looked like it was walking on its own. I don't care they were laughing at me. I was out. Just picture that, seeing someone hold a dead body at the end of a hallway, making it look like it was walking around and stuff. Yeah, I was done with that job. And I didn't go back there, but I did go to another nursing home, which was even worse. If you want to hear more about the nursing homes, let me know in the comments. I love to share.
I just want to give a disclaimer before I talk about this that this is not a joke. This is actually something very serious. It's very scary for both my fiance and I. There are some nights that he is perfectly fine and other nights that he will literally wake up in the middle of the night, like seeing images, whether it's creatures like a spider, a snake. Sometimes he'll see actual human entities, like he'll see a man standing in the corner or whatever. But before I go any further to what happened last night, I just want to do a trigger warning because this is very sensitive and I don't want TikTok taking this down because I didn't give a trigger warning. So if you at any point feel uncomfortable watching this, please scroll. So the last thing that happened was about a month ago. Our bedroom door was open and our bathroom door was cracked and it was dark, obviously. And my fiance saw this human-like hand, like the color of my skin, coming out from behind the bathroom door, going like up and down the door like this. Which, I mean, yeah, that was, really scary. I closed the bedroom door after. And nothing has happened since until early this morning, around 1:30 a.m. Mind you, I had taken these. So I passed out in like an hour, right? I was dreaming and I thought in my dream I heard my fiance say, oh my God, babe. Oh my God, wake up, what is that? I woke up, like literally not knowing what the heck was going on. And I look up to see my fiance going like he's just he's staring directly at our TV. And I'm like, are you okay? Are you seeing something again? Do you need a flashlight? So I didn't see anything, obviously. I got my phone, I shined my light, and there was nothing there. So I took my hand and I put it like right by his head, and he literally gripped my hand and just kind of like cradled it. And I did that so that he would know that I was there and that he was okay. So of course this morning comes around and I asked him if he was okay, and he said that he did not sleep well. And I asked him this time, I always ask him to try to describe like what he saw. And what he saw and how he described it, this was the first time that it gave me like full body chills. He saw at the foot of our bed a tall man, bald, no shirt on, very skinny. His eyes were like glowing white kind of, and I'm getting chills already. He was literally staring at my fiance, like staring at him like this, and just smiling. So I wasn't awake for any of this, I guess, but my fiance took a pillow and literally threw it towards the TV. And this is the part that really like made my heart drop in my ass. He said when he threw the pillow, the guy didn't move. He just stood there. And then he raised his arm up like this and pointed at my fiance. I'm getting chills again. And then I turned the flashlight on and he was gone. And my fiance was just very like heavily breathing. And I'm like, hey, you're okay, go back to sleep. I'm seriously considering wherever I can get some, saging our room, because I feel like holy water isn't going to do this justice, especially if he saw something standing right at the foot of our bed. I'm not sure what is going on in my fiance's mind or what he's dreaming about, but it's really been freaking the both of us out. Anyway, if you have any word of advice or anything that I should really consider doing, please let me know in the comments, because I am desperate. I don't really want him to see anyone, but if I can sage, holy water, whatever I can do, salt even, please let me know.
You get scared easy and you're laying in bed right now trying to fall asleep, you should probably just keep scrolling. I'll say I didn't warn you. This story that a follower sent me is so creepy, I just have to read it to y'all. About my worst fear, encountering a mimic. So Vanessa and her 16-year-old daughter, Olivia, live in this small town in South Dakota. Olivia goes and stays with her father every weekend, so she leaves on Friday afternoons and she doesn't get back until Sunday evenings. Olivia's usually already gone to her dad's house by the time Vanessa makes it home from work on Friday evenings. But on this particular Friday, when Vanessa made it home from work and she pulled in the driveway, she looked up at Olivia's window and she noticed that there was a light on. Figured that she had just like accidentally left it on or whatever, but when she went inside, she heard movement coming from upstairs. Vanessa was like, oh, I guess she decided to stay home this weekend, and she went upstairs and slowly opened Olivia's door and was like, hey, is your dad not picking you up today? Olivia said, no, I told him to stay, while she was looking down at her journal. Vanessa was like, oh, okay, well, that's fine. I'm going to go make us some dinner. Would you want to watch a movie tonight? There was a really long pause, and then Olivia said yes, and Vanessa thought that she was being a little bit standoffish. Didn't really like her to not have a lot to say. She usually talked a whole lot, so Vanessa texted her dad and asked if they maybe had gotten to some type of disagreement, and that was why he hadn't came to get her this weekend. Vanessa makes her way on downstairs, and she's like preparing for dinner and cooking and cutting up vegetables and just cleaning up and stuff. When she looks over and she notices that Olivia's book bag and coat isn't hanging where it normally is. She just assumed that Olivia had taken like her things with her to her room, so no big deal. But anyway, she walks into the living room and Olivia's sitting there on the couch, just facing the TV, like staring the opposite direction of Vanessa. Vanessa didn't hear her come downstairs or anything at all. She said it kind of startled her because she was just sitting on the couch, just staring at the TV, but the TV wasn't on. She wasn't on her phone or like doing anything that she would normally be doing. So Vanessa goes back to the kitchen to check on the food, and she hollers out for Olivia, and she says, hey, can you pick out a movie for us? So she goes back in the living room once she's done checking on the food, and when she gets in there, she notices that Olivia is still just sitting there staring at the TV, and it hasn't been turned on yet. Like, she's just sitting there motionless. And so Vanessa's like, hey, Olivia, did you hear me? I asked you to pick us out a movie. Vanessa sets their plates down and she grabs the remote and decides to pick out a movie herself, and she starts playing The Conjuring. And then she hears her phone dinging in the kitchen, so she's like, I'll be right back. I'm gonna go check my phone. When Vanessa checked her phone, she had a text from Olivia's father. He said when she read his message, her whole body just went like cold and stiff, and she had literal cold chills. He said, what do you mean? I picked Olivia up from school and we're having dinner right now with her grandmother. Vanessa took a deep breath and she started walking slowly back towards the living room to see if whatever that was still sitting on the couch. It was. It was still just sitting there, very still, motionless, just staring at the TV. That's when Vanessa realized that she hadn't even seen Olivia's face since she'd been home. Like, whatever this thing was avoiding eye contact. Vanessa went back to the kitchen. She didn't know what to do. She was terrified. Who wouldn't be? She knew that she had to go back in the living room, though, because her keys were in there. She took another deep breath and she worked up the courage to walk back out into the living room confidently, like everything was normal. It was gone. Vanessa said she don't know why, but she yelled out, Olivia? That's when she heard its voice coming from upstairs, sounding just like her Olivia, and it said, Mom, I need your help, in the most sinister voice. Hell no. Vanessa grabbed her keys and she ran the fuck out of that house as fast as she could. She was shaking so bad she couldn't even put the keys in the ignition. She said that at that moment she was just wishing that she had like pushed the start. As she was backing up out of her driveway, she said she looked back up to Olivia's window, and there it was standing, waving at her, faceless. Vanessa says she couldn't even breathe at this point, and she had never driven so fast in her entire life. Vanessa, I'm gonna need a part 2 to this one, so please, we need to follow up. The story has me scared. I had to tell it before it got dark out, because I plan on sleeping tonight. Can't wait to hear what y'all think about this story in the comments. If you have a scary story, please send it to me. You can send it on here, or you can send it to my email, which is my username at gmail.
Her son slept with a beat-up mannequin head. Story time. Now, trigger warning, because some of this is going to be weird and graphic. When I was a kid, I got babysat by this woman that we'll call Miss K, and she was really sweet. But Miss K had an adult son who lived with her. This man was so effing creepy. On this day, it was summertime. We were all out of school, so we got dropped off really early, and we didn't go back to sleep. We all would just go outside and start playing. 4 or 5 of us kids are outside playing when we see this big deer coming through the woods. It's right on the yard line. It comes right up, and it starts walking into the yard. But when we look a little closer, we start to realize this deer is wearing pants. Yes, it has a deer head, it's got antlers, it's a deer, but it's got a human body. It gets closer and it's making that deer sound, and when it gets right up to us, we all realize that's somebody wearing a deer head. Miss K's son had taken the deer head off the wall and cleaned out the skull and stuff, and he was wearing it on his head. He had straps on it so it wouldn't fall off. He shoved a deer call in the deer's mouth to his mouth where he could blow out of it, and he had deer hoofs on his hands. He was trotting around the yard on his hands and knees, wearing that big-ass deer head and those hooves, chasing the kids around. Yeah, the kids were terrified. They were scared as hell. They didn't know what this was or what was going going on. Like, her son had this obsession with scaring us for some reason. It was weird. So we go in the house, and one of the kids tells Miss K that her son is out there wearing a deer head, and she said, oh, he does that all the time. Just ignore him. Another time, me and this little boy are in the living room. She had a floor model TV, and she let us watch cartoons. So we're laying on the floor in front of the TV watching Bugs Bunny or something when that little boy beside me starts screaming every breath. So because he's screaming, I'm looking in the direction that he's looking at the wall, and around the corner, we see somebody peeking, and they're wearing this scary mask, like a witch mask. It was creepy as hell. I could understand why he was screaming. So the little boy jumps up on the couch, covering his face with the pillow, crying, and I'm still laying on the floor like on my back. Miss K's son, he's crawling on all fours, making this noise, and he crawls right up to my face and gets nose to nose and turns his head side to side like that. He just stares me eye to eye, and then he crawls backwards, still face to face, crawls out the room. And I just roll back over and start watching cartoons. Like, I don't know why I didn't tell my parents. I guess maybe because I grew up in a haunted house, that wasn't the worst thing I'd seen. I guess it wasn't scaring me as much as it did the other kids because I had been there longer and maybe I got used to it. He started doing that on a regular basis. Like, if you go to the bathroom, if you came out, you would see him wearing a scary mask peeking around the corner. Sometimes we'd be outside playing in her garden, like digging stuff up or planting stuff, and we'd look back at the house and we'd see her son standing at the kitchen window wearing that scary mask just staring at us. There'd be times where he would climb up a tree and just be perched up with that mask on watching us play. So one day, all hell broke loose when Miss K had to go to town to get some groceries. She couldn't take all of us with her. She had a car, so she let her son babysit us while she was gone. There's like 5 of us kids sitting in the living room watching TV. When 1 or 2 of the kids walk off, it was a boy and a girl, and they're gone for a few minutes. Next thing I know, I hear Miss K's son yelling, oh, y'all want to kiss? Y'all trying to make out? You think you're grown? Get in the kitchen. The rest of us get up, and we walk to the kitchen, and he tells us to get out, so we go back to the living room. Like 40 minutes goes by, and he comes out the kitchen and says, don't none of y'all go in the kitchen. You stay in the living room, and then he goes to his room. I'm sitting on the couch. Remember, I'm like 7, and I can hear these kids like sniffling, but I don't hear them talking. Well, finally, Miss K comes back home, and she's got a carload of groceries, so she tells us to go outside and get the bags, and she wants to know where the other 2 kids are, so we tell her they're in the kitchen. We're out there getting the bags, and we can hear Miss K screaming from inside the kitchen, what the did you do? Y'all, we run back in the house and we see that he super glued this boy and girl standing face to face, hands to hands up like this, and they're stuck. They could kind of pull their hands apart, but they couldn't really because it hurt so bad. So Miss Kate grabs her son by the back of his hair, jerks him up, and mind you, he's an adult. And she drags him into the room, throws him in, and shuts the door. Like, you could tell he was scared of his mama. But Miss Kay comes over to me and says, if he comes out of that room, I want you to grab my gun from behind my door and blow his damn head off. Do you hear me? And I said, yes, ma'am. I wasn't going to say no. I was terrified. So she spends the next couple of hours trying to peel their face and hands apart with some hot water and a rag. Has me standing guard at the door with that gun. So she had this short hallway, but all over the walls was pictures of her family. And I mean, there were hundreds of pictures. I walked down that hallway a million times, never noticed anything. But this one day, for whatever reason, the picture stuck out to me. I noticed every single one of them has the eyes and mouths burned out. Like someone had taken the pictures out of the frame and used like a wood burner or a cigarette and burned holes in the eyes and mouths and then put the pictures back in the frames and hung them up on the wall. So it's like a wall full of people with no eyes and mouths. And I do remember telling my mom about it that evening, but it seemed like she didn't believe me. One day, Miss Kay was outside checking the mail or something, I don't know, but we were sitting at the table eating, and I had really long hair. It was in a ponytail, and her son comes walking up with a pair of sharp scissors and walks behind me and grabs my ponytail like he's going to cut my hair, so I pull back like out of his arms. And then he tries to pull it again, and I said, no, don't touch my hair. And then Miss Kay came in, and she grabbed him by his arm and jerked him back and said, I told you to leave her alone. He was always walking around me, like trying to rub my hair and stuff, and I would like flick him off, like stop. Now looking back, I can tell he was kind of targeting me more. I don't know what the deal was, but Miss Kay always protected me, but she shouldn't have had him there in the first place because she knew something was wrong with him. Something was wrong with that whole family. And this is crazy. The more I talk about it, the more I have flashbacks of things I'd forgotten. So another time, she had this big basket of strawberries sitting on the freezer, and she told us we could eat them if we washed them. And he came in with this bowl of stuff. It looked like powdered sugar, and he told one of the other girls to dip her strawberry in it and eat it. And right before she started to do it, Miss Kay took the bowl out of his hand and dumped it in the trash. She then looked at her son and said, what the hell is wrong with you? Get the fuck out of here. And he left. Now, her son had this old beat-up truck parked out front of her house, just old drunk truck full of stuff, and the kids would go out there and play in it and dig around. So we're sitting on the grass near the truck, and 2 or 3 of the kids are in the truck plundering, and they come out with this thing, and when they walk up with it, it's like a switchblade, and they pop out the blade. And I said, whoa, put that back, like we're going to get in trouble. But one of the little boys that was holding it said, look, there's red stuff on it. You reckon he killed a deer? And I said, I don't know, put it back. Even though her son wasn't there, for some reason, I got this pit in my stomach, like I was really scared if we got caught, like we'd be in big trouble or he might would hurt us. One day, the kids was out there playing in his truck, and they found this like wrapped up engagement ring box They opened it and there was an engagement ring in it. Now, this guy never had a girlfriend, a wife, anything, but sitting there in the seat of that truck was an engagement ring. After seeing that, later the kids start asking Miss Kay, like, did your son ever have a wife or kids, a girlfriend, anything? And she said, no, he's never even had a girlfriend. And one of the kids said, well, there was an engagement ring in his truck. She said, where? So they went and got the ring and brought it back to her, and she's just sitting there looking at it like, she said she never seen it before. She took the ring, I don't know what she did with it, but she told us he never even had a girlfriend, so I don't know why he had that ring. I remember one day, one of the dads came to pick up their kids, and they walked up to the porch, and she would never let the parents come in. Like, she would always stand on the porch and talk to them. So he was up there talking to her, and he was like, I got some puppies out here. You're going to give them away for free. Do y'all want one? And Miss Kay said, no, we don't have no pets. Her son said, no, I do want a puppy. Let me see them. And Miss Kay stomped her foot on the porch and said, no, I said no pets. You know you're not allowed to have them. But I got the feeling it wasn't because she didn't like animals or didn't want a pet. I think it was because she knew he would hurt it. Yet she had us kids in the house around him, so I don't know. Oh, I remember one evening, he slipped off and went somewhere, and when he came back, he had this young girl with him, and they came up to the porch, and Miss Kay came out and said, no, you need to call your parents and go home. And her son was like, she's going to hang out here with us. And Miss Kay said, no, you're not allowed to have visitors, and you know that. So the girl ended up calling her dad, and her dad came and picked her up. She was a lot younger than him. Oh, and one day he was gone, and the kids went in his bedroom. And oh my God, I wish I'd never even went in there. He had magazines under his bed, and all the eyes and mouths had been like burned out, just like the ones on the walls. And there was like drawings on their faces. Basically, he was drawing wounds on these girls, like they'd been shot, stabbed. He also slept with this big mannequin head. There was no body, just the head, and his hair was all messed up. It looked like Cindy from Rugrats. It was all fucked up. He slept with that mannequin head every night, and he would walk with it around the house, holding it, like talking to it, trying to feed it and stuff, telling us it was his girlfriend. So it all came to a head one day when Miss Kay was in the back doing something, and one of our parents came to pick us up, and the parent managed to go in the house, and they seen some of the things that were in there and freaked the hell out. That little boy's daddy put all of us in his car and took us to our houses and talked to each and every parent and told them not to ever take us back. I was really upset that we couldn't stay no more. I loved Miss Kay. Now looking back, I'm thinking, what in the hell was going on in that house? Like, these people were crazy.
What would you do if your roommate started messing with the Ouija board and then slowly started seeming not like herself at night? This is After the Fire Stories, where I tell scary stories after the fire has gone out. So grab your favorite snack, your emotional support drink, and settle in, because today's story is about a girl whose roommate started messing with the Ouija board at night, and she should have just left it alone. I'm sending this because I still think about this girl all the time, and I still don't know what actually happened to her. I don't even know where she is now. We weren't lifelong best friends or anything, just housemates for a little over a year in our early 20s, but I knew her well enough to know when something changed. We rented a small house with one other girl from work. It was cheap and kind of crappy, but close enough to everything. And at first it was normal. My housemate, I'll call her Erin, was pretty outgoing. She had friends over a lot and always had music on, always wanted to talk at the end of the day, and she was one of those people who filled up a room. One weekend in October, she had a few friends over while I was home. They were drinking, being loud, doing all the usual stuff. And at some point, one of them brought out a Ouija board. I remember rolling my eyes because I thought it was corny and fake. They were all in the dining room with candles lit, acting serious for fun. And I told them I wanted no part of it and went to my room. I could still hear them laughing from down the hall. Later that night, after everybody left, Erin was weirdly quiet. Not upset exactly, just quiet. I asked if she was okay, and she said, yeah, just tired. I remember she looked pale, but I didn't think much of it because people get tired and hungover and weird all the time. The next few days, she was still pretty normal during the day, but not all the way. She seemed distracted. She'd stop in the middle of saying something and stare at nothing for a second, and she was sleeping badly too. I know because our rooms were across from each other and I'd hear her walking around late at night. Then one night I woke up and saw light under my bedroom door. I thought maybe she left the bathroom light on. When I opened my door, the hall was dark and the bathroom light was on, but her bedroom door was open just enough that I could see into the corner of her room. She was sitting on the floor in the dark, facing the wall, and not moving. I just stood there for a second, trying to understand what I was looking at. Then I heard her whispering, very low, very steady, like she was talking to someone close to her. I said her name and she didn't react at all. I shut my door fast and got back in bed and pulled the covers over my head, which I know sounds ridiculous, but I was so scared all at once that I didn't know what else to do. A few seconds later, I heard my bedroom door open. Then nothing. No footsteps, no voice, just that feeling that somebody was in the room. Then the door closed again. The next morning, she acted completely normal. I asked if she was okay, and she laughed and said, yes, why? I asked if she had been in my room last night, and she looked genuinely confused and said no. That happened more than once. Not every night, but often enough that I started dreading going to sleep. Sometimes I'd wake up and hear her whispering from her room, and sometimes I'd open my door and see her sitting in the same place, on the floor in the dark, facing the corner. Once she was kneeling instead. Once she was standing so close to the wall that her forehead looked like it was almost touching it. And every time I shut my door fast and got back in bed. And very often after that, I'd hear my own door open. Then it was silent, and then it would close. She started looking really bad too. Really thin, like scary thin, over a few months only. Her cheeks sank in and her skin looked almost kind of gray. She was tired all the time, but if you talked to her in the middle of the day, she seemed mostly like herself. She'd go to work, make jokes, watch TV with me, talk about regular stuff. That was almost the worst part because it made me keep doubting myself. I asked her one time straight up if anything weird had happened after the Ouija board, and she got very angry, way more angry than the question deserved. She said not to say that word in the house again. After that, I just stopped asking. The worst night was probably around 8 or 9 months into living there, and I woke up because I heard somebody in the hallway right outside my door, not walking, just there. I could tell from the light under the door that something was blocking part of it. Then I heard Erin whispering from across the hall, which made no sense because if she was in her room, who was at my door? I stayed completely still, and then I heard her bedroom door creak. The whispering stopped, and a few seconds later, my bedroom door opened slowly and stayed open long enough for the hall air to hit my face. I could smell something too. It wasn't rotten exactly, it was damp and stale, like an old basement. Then the door closed. I didn't sleep at all after that. I moved out as soon as the lease was up, which was a little over a year after that first night with the board. Erin was still there when I left, still thin, still tired, still mostly normal in daylight, and still not right. She hugged me goodbye and told me I was lucky to be getting out of that house. I asked her what she meant, and she just said, it likes the rooms better when there are more people. That was the last real conversation I had with her. I checked her social media for a while after I moved, and then one day it all just stopped updating. Maybe she deleted it, maybe she moved, I don't really know. I still think about her sometimes, especially when I wake up at night and hear somebody talking in another apartment or outside in the hall. I always think of her sitting there in the dark facing the corner like somebody was in it with her. And I never touched a Ouija board after that. Yeah, absolutely not. If I found my roommate at night whispering to themselves in a corner in their room, I would have moved out much sooner than that. This has been After the Fire Stories. If you have a paranormal experience or a scary story to share with me, then go ahead and send it in and I might read yours next.
Let's read a scary story that was sent to us. My dad built our childhood home in 2005 on a massive 45-acre property that had been passed down through my mom's side of the family for generations. The land itself always felt odd, quiet in a way that felt watchful, especially at night. I was only 4 years old when construction began, so I don't remember much of the building process. But my dad used to say the house was special. He never explained what he meant. Whenever I asked, he'd brush it off with a tight smile and say, "I'll tell you one day." There was always something in his tone that made me stop asking. One evening when I was about 10 or 11, we were sitting together in the living room. The house was quiet except for the TV humming softly in the background. During a commercial break, I asked him again what he meant when he said the house was special. This time, he didn't answer right away. Instead, he stared at the screen, then reached for the remote and paused the TV. The room went eerily silent. He took a slow breath and sat there for a moment like he was deciding whether or not he should tell me at all. Then he started. Near the very end of construction, my dad was in the house alone, finishing work on the windows in the master bedroom. My mom was outside in the yard, nowhere near the house. It was around 8:30 p.m. in June, the kind of dusk where the shadows stretch too long, and the light fades unevenly, leaving certain corners of a room darker than they should be. The house was mostly finished but still empty. No furniture, no sounds, just him, his tools, and the quiet. His back was turned towards the staircase when he suddenly heard a sharp metallic sound, like a single nail hitting the hardwood floor behind him. As he began to turn around, a box full of nails came crashing down from the top of the stairs, spilling violently across the floor as if someone had thrown it. He froze. After a long moment, he slowly approached the staircase. There was no one there. No movement, no explanation. My mom was still outside, and there was nothing upstairs that could have knocked the box over. He told me he never questioned it, never spoke about it, never acknowledged it out loud. He just let it exist. And the way he looked at me when he finished telling me that story made it clear. Whatever happened that night, he didn't want to understand it any further. This happened a few years later when I was about 12 years old. My sister and I had the 2 bedrooms upstairs. She was only 6 and hated sleeping alone, so she often climbed into bed with me. That night was no different. I turned on Nickelodeon, letting the familiar sounds and soft glow fill the room as I tried to relax enough to sleep. She fell asleep almost instantly. My 2 dogs were curled up at the foot of my bed, their presence usually comforting, but that night the air felt heavy and wrong, like something unseen had settled into the house. I couldn't get comfortable. I tossed and turned, my body restless, my chest tight with a sense of unease I couldn't explain. Eventually, I settled on my side, facing away from the bedroom door. The door was open, leading into a long, narrow hallway that was completely dark. Not just unlit, dark. The kind of darkness that feels thick, like it's waiting. That's when the dogs began to growl. At first, it was low and hesitant. I nudged them with my feet and whispered for them to hush. They stopped. A moment later, they growled again, louder this time. Annoyed and half asleep, I sat up slightly and told them to be quiet without even looking toward the door. They stopped again. 5 minutes passed. The silence stretched. Then both dogs snapped upright at the same time. Their growls turned deep and aggressive, vibrating through the mattress. The hair along their backs stood straight up. I had never heard fear in an animal's voice like that before. It wasn't warning, it was terror. I sat up fully, ready to kick them out of my room. Instead, I looked toward the doorway. Standing there was an old woman. She was halfway inside my room, halfway in the dark hallway, like she was caught between entering and retreating. Her skin was unnaturally pale, almost glowing against the darkness. She wore old-fashioned clothing, something out of the 1940s, like a soldier's wife pulled straight from an old photograph. She was staring directly at me, and she was smiling. Not warm, not kind. A slow, deliberate smile that felt like she knew exactly what she was doing, and that she had been waiting for me to look. My dogs continued to growl, bodies rigid, eyes locked on her. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it might give me away. Questions flooded my mind. How long has she been standing there? Was she already watching me before the dogs noticed? I rubbed my eyes. I blinked. She didn't disappear. And that's when the thought hit me. A cold, horrifying realization that makes my stomach drop to this day. If my dogs hadn't growled, if I hadn't listened to them, if I hadn't sat up when I did, would she have stepped fully into my room? Would she have came closer while my back was turned? The idea that she was only halfway in, paused, waiting, terrifies me more than seeing her at all. Desperate, I turned away for just a second to shake my sister awake. When I looked back toward the doorway, the hallway was empty. She was gone. I didn't sleep that night. I laid there frozen, staring into the dark hallway, convinced that if I looked away for even a moment, she would return, closer this time. I watched the darkness until the sun finally rose and filled my room with light. My parents told me I must have dreamt it. I'm 24 years old now, and I remember every detail with terrifying clarity. That night is a reason I never sleep with my door open. Whatever waits in the darkness of the hallways can stay there, on the other side of a closed door. Okay, I have to sleep with my door open because I have animals, and that just really scares me. Considering I do sleep with my door open, I cannot sleep with my back towards the door because I feel like somebody's watching me in the doorway. So I have to sleep facing the door. That way I can just kind of like open my eye a little bit and look around, see if anybody's there. Nobody's there, close my eyes and go back to bed. Anyway, that story is terrifying. That's why I turned the freaking light on. When y'all see this light on, I'm scared. Because I see so many comments of people being like, how do you not get scared? I get scared. Let us know if you sleep with the door open or closed.
When I was in high school, I met this girl named Jennifer and her brother Sam, and me and her brother ended up secretly dating for quite a while. We kept our relationship a secret because we knew his parents wouldn't approve because they were so religious and strict. Jennifer, Sam, and me were like this little tight trio that really loved each other, and we were always together. There wasn't a thing we couldn't tell each other. We got very close. But unfortunately, about a year and a half later, Sam got into a car wreck and died, and that just destroyed me and Jennifer. She and I ended up trauma bonding over losing Sam, and we just went off the deep end. One day in school, Jennifer passes me a note and says, "I want you to come stay at my house for a slumber party this weekend." And I said, okay. But when I got there, the only other person there was her half-sister, Stephanie. So it was just me, Jennifer, and Stephanie there. So we hang out, talk, listen to music, do our makeup, just girly things, up until about 12 o'clock that night. And all of a sudden, Jennifer says, "Hey, let's go down to the basement. I want to show y'all something." So Jennifer squats down in front of me and says, "Do you want to see Sam again?" And I said, "What are you talking about, Jennifer? He's gone. We can't see him again." And she said, "Yes, we can." So apparently the weekend before, Jennifer and Stephanie went to a carnival down at the beach, and while they were there, they ran into a fortune teller named Miss Shelby. Allegedly, Jennifer tells Miss Shelby, "My brother died and I miss him," and Miss Shelby tells her, "You want to see him again? Bring me $600 and I'll show you how." So Jennifer pays the money, and Miss Shelby gives her directions on how to perform this weird ritual. Jennifer believed her and went straight home and tried it. So I'm sitting here listening to this like, "Jennifer, do you hear yourself? You're talking about messing with a Ouija board. Like, this can get really bad." Jennifer said, "I don't care. I saw him. Don't you want to see him too?" Jennifer said Miss Shelby told her she had to have something from his body, like his hair, eyelashes, teeth, nails, a part of him, and the only thing she could think of was their baby books where her mom collected their first teeth, lock of hair, their first eyelashes that fell out, the first fingernail clippings, their umbilical cord. Their mom kept everything from when they were babies. So she had real pieces of her brother to use in this ritual. Miss Shelby told her whoever was in the circle had to put their own blood in the bowl. While that candle's burning that bowl full of stuff, we're supposed to be on the Ouija board calling out to him. So she said we have to call out his name, his full name repeatedly, and at some point we're going to see him appear in the room before that candle burns that bowl of stuff up. Even if you don't see him, you're going to feel his presence because you're basically bringing him there with that ritual. So Jennifer comes back in the room with a Ouija board, a candle, a bowl, and some of her brother's hair. So she took one of those sugar checkers and pricked our fingers, and we all put a drop in the bowl with her brother's hair. So she set that up and puts the Ouija board down and tells us all three to put our hands on the planchette, and we did. I don't know what the hell we were thinking. I can't even believe we did that. We were teenagers. We did not really know or understand what we were messing around with. So we all three start calling out his full name with our hands on the Ouija board. So we do that for over an hour, but nobody saw or felt anything. Jennifer said when she first did it, it took over 2 hours before she saw him. About an hour and a half later, Stephanie said, "Look, I'm tired, y'all. I mean, if y'all want to keep doing it, you can, but I'm going to go lay down." So she went and got on the couch, fell asleep. I told Jennifer I was tired too, and she begged me, "No, Alicia, please stay, please. I know, I feel it, we're close." So we keep calling Sam's name, and we keep looking through the planchette, and then finally, she saw a glimpse of what she thought was Sam. But me and Jennifer are face to face, and she goes, and I said, "What?" She said, "Sam's right behind you. He's here." And it was so weird because right when she said that, you know how it feels when you close your eyes and someone stands over you? You can't see him, but you can still feel it. That's how it felt. Like he was right there, but I couldn't see him. She said he looks so sad, like something's wrong. He looks scared. Jennifer said, "Sam, are you okay?" And she swore that he shook his head no. She said then his face looked like he was getting angry, like he was upset. And she said, "Are you angry that I brought you here? If so, I can stop." And then she said he shook his head no, like he didn't want her to stop. This whole time, she was seeing him behind me. I wasn't seeing anything. So finally, Jennifer said, "He's got his arms wrapped around you, Alicia. He's hugging you." And I just broke down and started crying. I said, "Jennifer, I'm about to break down. Like, we got to stop for a minute. I need a break." So we took our hands off the planchette and we let go of each other's hands. So I go to the bathroom and I'm peeing, and then I get up to wash my hands. And while I'm looking into the mirror, I catch a smell like it smells just like his cologne. And I don't mean like his bottle of cologne. I mean like the way it smelled when he wore it. Like his natural smell and the cologne together. It felt just like he was standing beside me, hugging me or something. Like he was right there. I like wash my face and come out the bathroom. And when I look at Jennifer, she's still sitting in front of the Ouija board. So I walk over and she's just stone-faced. I said, "Are you okay?" She said, "I just saw my brother right here face to face and he told me he needed me and then he disappeared." After we got done, something told me to scrub that bowl thoroughly and get my out of it because I didn't want nobody to be able to use it against me later. We had a really good experience. It felt like we both started to heal and got not closure, but some type of closure, and we could begin to move on from this. From that point, I began moving on. You know, I started talking to other people, making new friends, but unfortunately, Jennifer didn't. She became obsessed with doing this ritual. About 2 weeks later, I go back to Jennifer's house, and I noticed the candle sitting on her bedroom dresser, and the first candle is already burnt halfway down where she's been doing this so much. I said, "Jennifer, please tell me you're not doing this every day, all day." And she said, "No, just every night around 2 or 3 o'clock. That's the best time to do it. I can hear his voice. I can smell his cologne. Like it's like my brother is here with me. It's like he's back." I said, "Jennifer, you know he's not really here though, right? Like he's not back with us. We can't bring him back." And she said, oh, I know. I said, look, just please be careful messing with that damn board, because you know what everybody says. It invites other darker spirits in the room with you, so they could get attached to you. And she said, I don't care. As long as I get to see my brother, that's all I care about. A couple weeks later, her mom finds out she has the Ouija board and tells her she has to get rid of it. And Jennifer ends up attacking her mother and tells her, no, I'm not getting rid of the board. Jennifer had never gotten aggressive or done anything like that before, especially not her own family. She wouldn't even hurt a fly. So I could tell something drastic was going on with her, like she was changing. She calls me up and says, Alicia, Sam wants to see you again. I want you to come over and do it with me again. And I said, no, I'm not doing it again. She said, well, you at least come see me. I miss you. And I said, yeah, I'll come tomorrow. So the next evening, I go to her house, and when I get to her bedroom, I can see that her fingers are all pricked up where she's been putting her blood in that bowl. And I see all these melted candles where she's been doing this nonstop. I said, Jennifer, what are you going to do? Burn through every candle in the house? You're doing this way too much. She said, don't tell me what to do. You don't know what I'm going through. You didn't lose your brother. I said, you're right. I don't know what you're going through. He wasn't my brother, but I loved him too. I can't say my experience is just like yours, but I'm hurting as well. But we can't keep doing this. It's got to stop. And when I tell you that girl jumped up and got in my face, she said, how do you plan to stop me? And I said, I'm not trying to stop you. I'm just saying it has to stop because you're getting out of control with it. But I think had I tried to take the candles away from her or try to stop her, like she would have physically became combative because she was that irate. Later that night, about 10 o'clock, I'm sitting on my bed at my house doing some homework when all of a sudden my bedroom door quickly swings open, but nobody's there. There was nobody else in the house but me and my parents, and they were already in bed. I say loudly, go away, leave me alone. And then the bedroom door just closes back. It doesn't click shut, but it went back to the door frame. So at 3:23 a.m., I abruptly wake up. Look around, nobody's there. My gut was screaming at me, something is here with you. I don't know what it is, but it's here in this room. I just got the creepiest feeling. I looked up at my bedroom door, and I could see this face in the crack, like out in the hallway, and that face was just sitting there staring at me. I pulled the covers over my head and just sat there, and I could hear whatever it was, like shifting around the room, and I said, go away, and then it finally stopped. The next day, I talked to Jennifer at school. She's back looking happy as ever, fresh, cleaned up, hair done, and I said, well, I'm glad to see you look better, like you're doing good. She said, well, I'm in a great mood. I said, why? She said, because I'm going to get to see Sam again. I'm going to be with him. She told me that Sam told her he was in danger, and he needed her to come to the other side and save him, or at least be there with him to protect him. I said, whoa, Jennifer, what do you mean? He's dead. You can't be with him. She said, no, I can be with him on another plane. If I unalive myself at the same place where he died, our souls will be attached, and we can be on that plane together. Now, I'm just standing here in the middle of the high school hallway looking at her like, you've lost it. I said, Jennifer, that would destroy your mom and daddy. Don't do that to them. Please, they've already lost your brother. Your family cannot take this again. Please don't do that. And then she gets in my face and says, you better not tell anybody or I will send him to you. And I said, send who to me? And then she squinted her eyes and said, you know who. You saw him last night, didn't you? And I said, that was you? Why would you do that to me? Why are you putting this dark shit off on me? I've never been nothing but a good friend to you. I love Sam too. But I knew right then, this has got to stop. So I finally did the right thing, and I told a guidance counselor what Jennifer was planning on doing, and he contacted her parents and told them, so they were able to stop her. Her parents went down in the basement, and they took everything. I mean, the candles, the board, the bowl, all his baby stuff, all of it, and threw it away. And when Jennifer saw it was gone, she flipped out and attacked her parents. It got so bad that her mom had to have her institutionalized for about a year because she kept trying to go be with Sam. And because they had thrown everything away, she threatened to go dig up his body and take a piece of him so she could at least do the ritual and be able to see him again. Like, it got that bad. But eventually they got her help for mental health, and she got put into therapy, and she started to heal, and within a couple of years she started doing better. To this day, we don't think what she was messing with was Sam. We think it was something a lot darker, pure evil, and probably something that wanted to take her or her soul, because it weren't Sam. Because the Sam that we knew and loved would never ask her to do that. He would want her to continue with her life, move on, and grow up and love herself.
Okay, we really have almost made it. I know I keep saying that, but we're rounding the edge to the top. Won't be long. We've about made it, buddy. We just gotta go all the way up there. Look at my company. He has walked really far with me. We've been walking for like an hour. I don't know. Hey, it's your baby. You ready to keep going, Jackie? If you can't tell, this is like a vertical slope. And we're going straight up. So we came from down there and we're going all the way up there. So let's keep trucking. I'm like tilted because it's just straight up like this. Just when you think it can't get any steeper, It does. You coming? He's being weird all of a sudden. I don't know. Let's go, guys. You coming, Jack? Come on. Come on. We've almost made it, so I don't want to turn around now. Come on, Jack. Let's go. We're going to the top, bud. Come on. What is it? What's up, bro? Come on. Come on. I'm going to the top, buddy. You coming with me or are you just staying? Why are you being so weird, bro? It's okay. Look, it's right there. The top is right there. Come on, we've almost made it. I don't guess he's coming anymore. I don't know. So. Anyways, we've almost made it, so we're not stopping now. Look how cool this is. All the ice in that hole. That is a fairy trap if I've ever seen one. That's so cool. Still moss and ferns growing. Jack! Kitty, 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 kitty! Come on! I don't know, y'all. He's still just headed back down. Anyways, I can't believe the moss and ferns are still growing. I'm so close to the top, y'all. I really don't want to turn back around. But at the same time, I'm sure it'll be fine. See, we're literally going right over that hill. Jack's still down there meowing at me. Okay. I'm gonna have to walk over this way to get around. I think we're gonna have to go this way. Anyways, that's where we're going. There's deer prints. Yeah, I'm gonna flip y'all around. You guys. What do I sign myself up for? Okay. I've about made it. I hope these roots don't fail me. Wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't. Okay, here's the sun again. It's getting better again. Almost to the lookout point. I probably won't wait around on the sunset because it's still pretty high in the sky. And I don't want to get back down.
What would you do if you and your friends broke into an abandoned house and each time one of you came back different? This is Scared with Jess, and today's story is about a group of teenagers that broke into a house and wished that they never kept coming back. I'm not proud of any of this. That's probably the first thing I should say. This is when I was 17. There was an abandoned house outside that town that everybody knew about. Not famous, not some big urban legend place, just one of those half-rotted houses on old land that teenagers messed with because there was nothing else to do. We called it the Turner Place because apparently that was the family name years ago, and I don't know if that was even true. The first time we went, there was 4 of us. It was daytime, and we walked through, looked around, and made jokes, found some old magazines, broke furniture, all of that. The place felt creepy, but in a normal abandoned house way. Mold, old wallpaper, animal smells, floor sagging. And then one of my friends found the back room upstairs. There wasn't anything special about that room at first glance, just smaller than the others. One little window, stains all over the floor, but on one wall there was these marks cut into the wood. Not graffiti, not names, repeated shapes, same symbol over and over, carved deep enough that you would feel them with your fingers. My friend Evan touched one and immediately pulled his hand back and said it felt warm. We laughed at him, and that night, Evan called me around 2 in the morning asking if I was outside his house. I wasn't. He said somebody had been walking in circles under his window for 20 minutes, and every time he looked, there was no one there. I told him to stop freaking himself out and go to sleep. That should have been the end of it. Instead, we went back again. That was the mistake. Evan wanted to prove to himself that it was nothing. The rest of us went because we were dumb and 17 and still thought scary things were fun if they happened to somebody else. We went back at dusk this time, not full dark, but getting there. Right away, the house felt different, quieter, heavy. Even one of the guys who never took anything seriously said it felt harder to breathe in there. We went upstairs again because, of course, we did. The back room door was shut this time. I know it was open the first time because we all walked right past it and looked in. This time it was shut, and there was something black smeared across the doorknob. It looked like old grease, maybe, or mud. Evan was the one who opened it. The room smelled awful, like something dead, but underneath that there was another smell, almost sweet. We all noticed that, and one of the guys gagged right away. On the floor, right in the center of the room, there was a dead dog. Not fresh, not bones either, somewhere in between. And around it, in the same black stuff, were the same symbols from the wall drawn in a circle. We all started backing up at once. Then, from downstairs, we heard a door slam. Not a little noise, a full, violent slam. We ran. On the way out, Evan tripped at the bottom of the stairs and hit his shoulder hard on the wall. I grabbed his arm and pulled him up. We made it outside the back to the truck and got out of there. After that, Evan changed. I don't know how else to say it. He got quiet first, then mean. Not all the time, just in these little bursts that didn't fit him. He stopped sleeping. He looked bad within maybe 2 weeks. Not sick exactly, just worn out and wrong. Like he was always coming back from somewhere hard, even when he'd been sitting in class all day. Then he started scratching those symbols into things. His desk at school, the paint on his truck, the inside of his own closet door. He swore he wasn't doing it, said he'd noticed them after sleeping or after zoning out and have no memory of it. His mom thought he was on drugs. He wasn't. And one night, he showed up at my window around 1 a.m. I'm not exaggerating. I woke up because I heard something tapping on the glass, and it was him standing there in the dark. I opened the window a crack and asked what he was doing. He said, "Don't let it in if it asks in my voice." Then he walked away. The next day at school, he acted like he didn't remember coming over. At that point, I wanted nothing to do with him or that house anymore, but the thing is, you can tell yourself you're done with something and still get pulled back. A week later, one of the other guys said Evan had gone back out there by himself and maybe we should go get him before he did something stupid. So we went. It was fully dark this time. The front door of the house was open, and we all know it had been shut because one of us had checked from the truck with the headlights on. The air around that place felt colder than the road by a lot. Not just country night cold, different. We could hear somebody upstairs, walking, then talking. It sounded like Evan, but not fully, like his voice had dropped lower and was rubbing against itself. I know that's a weird way to put it, but that's what it sounded like. We went upstairs because we were stupid enough to think we could still fix whatever was happening. The back room door was open. Evan was in there, kneeling in the middle of the floor where the dog had been before, except the dog was gone, just stains left. He was facing the wall with the symbols and talking fast in a voice that was way too deep for him. I couldn't understand most of it, but I heard my name once. Then one of the other guys' names. I said, "Evan?" And he stopped. He turned and slowly he smiled at us. That smile still bothers me because it was him, but not right. Too wide, too calm. Then he stood up and I realized he had blood all over his hands. One of the guys bolted immediately. The other one just froze. I should have run then too, but I didn't. Not until Evan started walking toward us and said in that same deep voice, "You left me here with it." We ran after that. I heard him coming behind us on the stairs for a second and then not anymore. We got outside and into the truck and then left him there. I know that sounds horrible. It was horrible. But none of us could make ourselves go back. His mom reported him missing the next day. They found him 2 days later walking on the shoulder of the highway 20 miles away with no shoes on. He was dehydrated and half out of his mind. He was alive, but after that, he was never really the same. He ended up leaving town within the year to stay with relatives, and after a while, none of us knew where he even was. The house burned down maybe 6 months later. People say squatters or kids or wiring or whatever. Maybe. I don't care. I still dream about that room sometimes. And every now and then, maybe once a year, I'll wake up and find one of those carved symbols in my head so clearly that I can draw it from memory without trying. Follow for more scary stories, and as always, good luck sleeping tonight.